This is the Doing Scary Things podcast. I'm Katie. I'm a veteran photographer, a serial entrepreneur, an aspiring author, and a relentless optimist. I'm a slow-talking, deep thinker from the Appalachian Mountains.
I'm Anna. I'm a prodigal musician, an accidental psychotherapist, and I'm living life mostly by experiment and endless curiosity. I'm a redheaded speed talker from a Midwestern farm town.
The purpose of this podcast is to talk to people who are doing some pretty scary things in their life about what it takes for them to push past fear and keep themselves going every day.
We'll also unpack the vulnerable things we're pursuing in our own lives and hopefully offer encouragement to you wherever you are on your journey.
Man, that was brilliant.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Doing Scary Things podcast. We're so glad you're here. If you've been with us since our launch, we're so appreciative of you. It's been an amazing year so far. If you're just joining us, welcome. We definitely encourage you to go back and listen to the journey we've been on so far this year. Today is our last episode of the year. And since we know a lot of people are using this time of year to set goals and resolutions for next year and are maybe thinking about taking some really courageous first steps into your own scary things, we just thought we would take an episode today to kind of reflect on our own journey and how setting aside one day led to some big changes in our life. We hope you'll really enjoy it, and we're looking forward to all the exciting things we have planned for 2019, and we hope you'll join us again for those. If you like bloopers, you might just be in for a treat at the end of this episode. Hope you enjoy.
Katie, you brought up this really interesting idea on a long drive recently.
Thank you.
We were in the car together. We're just chatting away, chit-chatting away, and
Chit-chat.
we were actually having probably a really deep existential conversation. Yeah. We don't chit-chat all that much, but we do conversate quite a bit. And this was a really interesting thought. I thought it was an interesting perspective for us and sort of our journey and our work together, but it's also an interesting thought for everyone. I would love for you to enlighten us a little and just kind of continue that discussion.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate those words. A lot of things have happened in recent times. I feel like this idea kind of hit me early one morning when I was just kind of laying in bed, and it was that I was just sort of remembering kind of our journey, I guess, and how different our day-to-day, week to week, month to month is looking these days versus 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because that was very much a time, honestly, for me, I can only speak for myself, it was pretty hopeless at times. And I don't want to sound ungrateful. Like, I had a great life then, a business I was really proud of and grateful for, had a great husband, still do. Good things were in my life.
Right.
But there was this...
Your life wasn't hopeless.
My life wasn't hopeless, but I felt, if I can use this word, I felt a little trapped because I had sort of chosen this one destination, gotten sort of as far as made sense to go, and there were just all these other things I wanted to do. And at that time, I wasn't sure it was okay to do them or not. I wasn't sure if I could do them. I wasn't sure if I had permission to do them. Obviously, these are things we've talked about before. So the big one was I wanted to write songs, and I wanted to sing, and I wanted to write a book. I guess I'm taking a really long time to explain this because I wanted to set up just how I didn't see those things as realities because I was very busy.
So busy. I think that's quite an understatement.
I mean,
like, very does not cover it.
I would consider myself for most of my 20s being a complete workaholic. And there's a lot we could dive into there. I didn't have boundaries. I was working really long hours. It wasn't even that I had a Saturday off or a Sunday off or after 6 o'clock off. I didn't feel like I had any time for myself. And I think you were in a similar boat.
Right.
You had a private practice, still do. You're self-employed. Like we had successful businesses. On paper, we had checked the boxes. We were living the life. Like there wasn't really a need to change, but there was the desire.
Right.
And it was very important to us.
Departing from your life kind of being about your business that, you definitely, I mean, both of us, worked really hard for them and we're proud of them and got them where we wanted them to go. It felt, for me, I don't know if this is the same for you, but for me, it felt self-indulgent to even think about making that time for myself and stuff. So it was like this, I relate to that a lot, sort of the trapped feeling of I'm trapped in like a good life.
Yeah,
but like,
I created this.
Right.
I got to where I thought I wanted to be, and then it didn't end there.
Right.
Even if it had made sense on paper to say, I'm going to take a day to write songs, like nobody's going to pay me. I don't have an end result in sight. I'm just going to do this because I love myself and I want to spend time on doing something that makes me happy. Even if I felt okay with those things, which I don't think I did at the time,
big if.
There was no possibility in sight at first. Like it wasn't like, okay, we'll do that Saturday. I was probably shooting a wedding. There wasn't like, we'll do that Wednesday when you get off work. No, I was working all the time. I started thinking the other day about, we did do it. We did find the time and what a difference that has made.
Yeah.
So about 3.5 years ago now, as selfish as it seemed at the time, frankly, and as a little bit crazy as it seemed, we put a day on the calendar.
Yeah.
One day of the month.
Yes.
And I remember thinking that was the biggest time sacrifice. No clients went on that day. It did not get changed no matter what. We were going to get together and we were going to write songs.
Right.
And it was for us. And it was, I don't think, this is skipping ahead a little, but it was like to picture ourselves where we are today, where we have recorded songs, we've released songs, we've started a podcast.
Yeah.
Like we're meeting a lot now. You're keeping track, right? You're spending how many hours a week on this sort of thing?
Yeah. Right now I'd say like 10 to 15.
Yeah. So it has evolved from one day a month to this, where it's a very significant part of our lives. And that was not even in the equation in the beginning.
Right.
It was, I can't even believe I'm giving myself a day to do this.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
I was just thinking, I remember that conflicted feeling of feeling honestly kind of guilty and or silly setting that time aside, but also ferociously protecting the time.
Yeah.
And it felt so weird and dissonant to try to reconcile those things because it was a lot of just good faith that it was going to be the right thing to have done. Even though it still felt like, oh my gosh, this is self-indulgent, or this is,
Definitely.
just scary too, to be vulnerable and say, I'm actually going to sit down and write today,
Yeah, but guilt is definitely a good word. I had a lot of guilt. And I think I had to kind of turn my brain off in that regard and just say, it's almost like anytime you think about self-care, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to being like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this for myself because I know it's going to better myself. That was very much what this was.
Yeah.
There weren't expectations really. We didn't know what it was going to turn into.
Yeah.
But it was like, this is the next step. We're going to give ourselves a day. And yeah, if it was something, frankly, that I was just doing for myself, I probably would have moved it off the calendar a few times. That wasn't an option. Like we were in it together. We were going to make ourselves do this. And we were super excited. It was just, we were in that place for so long of not having time that it didn't make sense.
Yeah. And I feel like having that accountability to the other person, like I committed that day, not just to me, but also to you, like that extra little kick in the pants helped to make it really happen.
Yeah. I kind of just wanted to set all that up that way because I think, unless I'm just crazy, I think probably a lot of people can relate to that. I think there's a lot of well-meaning people out there who are just doing their best. They're working, they're providing for their family, they're going home and trying to have time with their kids.
Yeah.
You know, whatever these things are on your list, I would imagine, and again, I felt that way myself, that in a dream world, yes, there's probably these things you can think of that you would love to get to eventually. However, you're just thinking, I'm at my capacity.
Right.
There's no time for this.
Those are not things to sneeze at, you know?
Yeah.
Providing for your family and going to your job. Like, those are really important. You gotta keep doing those.
We're definitely not saying, like, quit your job, be irresponsible, like, do this, you know? But we very much believe in taking actionable steps to achieve things that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just started tossing around this idea of how could other people carve out this time? Mm-hmm. So for us, it started with 1 day a month. And then it moved to 2 days a month. And now it's several days a month. So what are some ways, if someone does have a full-time job, maybe they have kids, maybe they have other obligations on the weekend,
right?
How could they, you know, it doesn't have to be a day, but let's just work in that realm for a minute. How could they carve out a day? What would be some possibilities?
Right. Because in the daily and weekly grind of work and family and all that, it's easy to just glance at that and feel like you have no margin whatsoever to work with. But I think often if you look a little bit closer, you'll find something. Maybe that's actually sacrificing one of your precious vacation days to do 1 day of dedicated to this thing. And I think we can't emphasize enough too that, like, whatever your endeavor is important enough to sacrifice for. You know, this is a thing that's super important. It's not just a whim. Maybe you do have days you can take off, and maybe you take off a random Thursday and you dedicate it to that. Or maybe you break it up and you don't do all 1 day at one time.
Yeah, like what would it look like if you set 30 minutes aside 4 times a week?
Yeah. I think for writing and those kind of artistic, creative things, for me, I have this belief that, and this belief is informed by my own experience, but I have this belief that it's really hard for me to get anything meaningful done in 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that might not always be true. Mm-hmm. And so if anybody else believes that, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. All I'm saying is, you know, take 30 minutes and find out.
And just do it.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm thinking of is working out as an example.
Yes.
How many times have I talked myself out of doing a workout because I only had 15 minutes or I only had 30 minutes? But if you're doing that on a consistent basis, isn't that so much better than not doing it?
Exactly.
I'm using that same train of thought with teaching myself guitar right now.
Yeah.
And it feels so daunting because, you know, everybody I know that plays guitar started when they were like 8 and they've done a million hours. And I know. And it's so hard because it feels like I'm never going to get there.
Right.
But if I practice, you know, for 30 minutes for 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, I'm a little bit closer, you know, to getting better at it.
Well, and interestingly, too, on the other side of that coin, sometimes the thing that you want to start including in your life is really intimidating. And sometimes it's great to just go, you know what? I'm going to do this for 5 minutes.
Sure.
You know, like you don't have to have 30 minutes. It depends on what the thing is. But all I'm saying is, like, even if you just go, okay, I'm not going to set aside a whole day for this because maybe the perceived risk of wasting that day or disappointing yourself is too great. Okay, fine. Slice it thinner. Like 5 minutes. Play guitar for 5 minutes and see how you feel after that, you know?
Probably you'll keep going if you start for 5. But but for us, you know, 1 day, to that point, 1 day felt big.
Yes, it did.
It felt huge.
Yeah.
And it felt like a sacrifice. It felt unrealistic.
Yeah.
I think I would say that if you're trying to figure out what you can set aside, it shouldn't be too easy, honestly.
Right.
If you've got time just laying around, well, do it, but push yourself a little.
For sure.
You know, make it something meaningful. Back to the workout example, like, you know, pay for the gym membership so that you'll go and use it, you know?
Right, exactly. Well, I was just thinking that too. Time is just one resource. Like when we talk about sacrificing things, it's like, okay, everyone seems to be busy.
Of course.
Time's a hot commodity, but there's other ways in which you might feel that sacrifice too. It may not, maybe you do have a lot of time, but maybe it's the courage, just the courage to try something or to make a plan. Time, I think, is extremely relatable, and it was certainly true for us. That was one of our biggest, potential excuses to not do it. And so that's where the sacrifice comes in. There's a relationship there.
Definitely. And that is something we've talked about a lot, is there's always going to be excuses.
Right.
Don't listen to the excuses. Don't list them out. Flip those around. Like,
right.
What are some reasons it could work out? What are some things that'll add to your life if you do it? And I would say start there. Another example we kind of threw around is maybe you are a really busy mom and you have children in your care and you can't imagine having any time to yourself without them.
Right.
Is there a mom you could trade off with? Probably she has things she would like to work on as well.
Yeah.
So could it be something where one day you're watching her kids and she has time and then you guys flip it and then suddenly you have,
right.
Again, maybe not a full day, maybe a couple hours, but what can you do with that time for yourself?
Right. Mom's doing scary things. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. Hashtag it. Mom's doing scary things.
Scary mom swap. No, I don't think that's right.
Scary life endeavors. That was just kind of the idea. We said, we're here for creativity, right? We're here for problem solving.
Right.
So what are some ways we can think past this problem?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their limitations, at least from whatever point you're standing in right now. You have some limitations and you have all those parameters to work with, but always be checking your attitude. Am I finding a way to do it, maybe even in spite of those things? Or am I finding those things to be reasons to not push more or not keep going?
Yeah. And I think as we come to the end of the year, or you may be listening to this another time of the year, you don't have to wait for a new year to start.
Yeah.
But if it's something, as it had been for me, if it's something that has maybe made your resolution list for several years, there's been something that has kept you from starting.
Right.
And so let's figure out what that is. Let's actually start this year.
Yeah.
And I can promise you at the end of the year, you're not going to regret it. You're going to feel so much freedom and so much just success in your bravery that you did it. You tried it. You started it. Mm-hmm. We're not saying at the end of the year you're going to be a master at it. That's not the goal.
Right.
The goal is that you gave yourself that time and you finally did the thing that is really important to you because you deserve it.
Yeah, and having started is very energizing and it's very fulfilling. It's not like you're going to start and everything's going to go right.
No.
But it's going to be going.
It's going. Moving forward.
Yeah.
One more slightly tangent that I just want to throw in. Guys, if you have done the new update on your iPhone, I don't know if everybody knows about this. It does this really scary thing of tracking your social media time and your screen time. The first week I looked at that and it told me how many hundreds of times I touched my phone during the day. I wanted to vomit.
Oh my gosh.
This is something we did not talk about in advance.
I did not know about this.
Oh my gosh, guys.
Ooh.
It's terrifying. And I don't want to say the number of how many hours a day I spend on social media. And it's part of my job. And I still don't want to spend this much time on it.
Yeah.
And so as we're talking about limitations and things we can and can't change, yes, you've got a full-time job. Yes, you have kids, you have a spouse, you have family members, you have non-negotiables. However, how many hours are you spending in front of a screen? How many hours are you watching TV? How many hours are you spending putting something into your life that isn't going to get you where you want to be?
Right.
And let's start taking time away from those things and putting them towards the things that actually are on that resolution list.
Right. That's so true, because even thinking about the idea of margin, maybe you'll examine your life and you'll see that there isn't any right now. But that means you have to make some.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And like, that's perfect. Like, those are great places from which to harvest some,
Absolutely.
you know, reclaim some time or some energy or whatever.
If you're spending 10 minutes, which I understand isn't a long amount of time, but if you're spending 10 minutes in your work bathroom on Instagram, spend it doing something else at work. Come on. Like,
download that GarageBand
bosses
app.
call me. Like, we'll talk about it. But like, if you're, you know, there's gotta be margins somewhere. I'm just a really big believer in like, this is where you take control of your life.
Yeah. Well, and speaking from kind of my own experience a little bit, I can't remember exactly, but it was like 1.5 to 2 years completely off of social media.
Yeah.
And I'm not completely off of it now. And I'm not saying everyone needs to take a hiatus, but what I am saying is, wow, did that ever free up
Sure.
time and mental energy and
Absolutely.
bandwidth in my life? Oh my gosh. I think it is absolutely no accident that so much growth and so much more dedication and desire that just begets more and more about music in my life has happened while that was the case. Like, even now, being fairly newly back into social media again, it's great to like be back in the community with everybody and feel a little more connected. But I took that time very seriously, and it really has influenced the way that I came back to it, and the way that I engage with it now is very different than before. So
I love that.
That's just a pro tip. Like, if you really need an extra kick in the pants and you already know deep down that you need a break from that, it was one of the best choices I have made in the last decade, probably.
Yeah, here's your invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, to that, I always admired that so much that you did take that break, and I was almost jealous in a way, you know, because I do it for work. And,
exactly.
And it was just like, wow, like that is so cool. I will say one way I tested it even before this new update came out. So if you don't have the update, maybe try this one. I started carrying around a physical book with me. And in those instances where I would catch myself just mindlessly scrolling, instead, I would pull out the book and read. And I mean, it was crazy to realize even in that way how much time I actually had. Like, even if it's 50 pages, wow, okay, so I finally put something into my mind that I wanted to.
Right.
And it wasn't just scrolling, you know, and whatever is there, and it's upsetting me, or it's not, or it's making me jealous, or whatever, you know, it's like I can choose how I'm spending my time and what I'm putting into my brain.
Tiny mental health sidebar about that. Just the rapid fire, vast information that we're constantly taking in and just cycling through. I have to believe that it's better for kind of your brain, but also just like your kind of psyche and your own mental well-being to be engaging with something that's deeper and more of a continuity than just like looking at whatever's in the feed, you know? And I mean, as like a therapist, I'm pulling my therapist card on this one. Like, I highly recommend people considering that, because man, how much garbage in, garbage out is happening in our brains every day. It's one of the big downfalls of social media, I think, but.
Totally. And we've totally gone on a tangent that we didn't have planned. But, you know, I don't pay for books. Here's another example. I'm not spending money on this. Like, I am a member of the library. The library has a free app that I can listen to audiobooks for free on.
Yeah.
Right now, one thing that I'm trying to get better at is public speaking. So I'm listening to an audiobook about public speaking, and it might be 5 minutes a day before I'm like, okay, I don't want to focus on this anymore. Like, I actually need a brain break. But it's just one way that you can, no matter how slow the pace, you can work towards where you want to be.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, I mean, I know I've heard myself say this 1,000 times, and you've probably heard me say it 1,000 times, but if the barrier you're looking at that's staring you in the face is too big, slice it thinner. If you don't have 10 minutes, have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have money, find a way to get a free book. Borrow it. You know, it's like, there are ways.
Definitely. We are living in such a time. I mean, you can Yeah. You can learn anything you want to learn.
Yeah, and you know what?
You honestly can.
One step further, if you don't know, if you can't figure out how to slice it thinner, ask someone else.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Ask for ideas. We're here for you too.
Guys,
ask
if
us.
you're stuck, send me a message. I will go to the ends of the earth to try to find answers.
Yeah.
I mean that. You had a really interesting example.
Oh, yes.
About this, and I wanted you to share it if you don't mind.
Yeah, totally. So just kind of going back to the idea that it's really easy to identify lots of ways or reasons to not do it. Whatever it is, whatever step it is. I really believe that people are capable of more than they think, and we often have the capacity to dig deeper than we realize. Even just recently, I was talking with someone about something that they really profess to want to do or profess to have as a priority, and they just were naming all the reasons that they couldn't and all the things that were in their way. I asked them to think of somebody that they really loved. And then I said, if they were taken hostage by someone and you had to do this to free them, how would you find a way to do it? How would you go about making sure that that person was safe by doing this thing? I'm sure that they could find a way if it was that dire. We don't have to be unnecessarily dramatic and make things dire when they're not. But the truth is, if we had to, if push came to shove, a lot of times we could find a way.
You would find the time, you would find the money.
Yep.
You would put anything aside to save that person.
Right.
The analogy is, what will you do to actually save your own life?
Right.
And I thought that was so smart and so brilliant. And it reminded me of a poem that I had come across a couple years back when all of this was really stirring in me. And I was trying to decide if I was going to give myself permission, frankly, to go after this stuff. The poet's name is Mary Oliver, and this was really one of my first introductions to her. And I am obsessed. I think she's brilliant. I love her poetry. If you guys will just indulge me, I'm going to read this poem because it really meant a lot to me in that moment of trying to begin. And it's something that I still reflect on often. So this poem is called The Journey. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voice behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life that you could save. So friends, we just really want to encourage you as this year does come to an end that you can do it. And it might seem really small at first, these steps, these changes. Every story is different, and we would never expect you to think that just because we set one day aside, the same thing could be exactly the same for you.
Right. And, we've said this to each other before that, we're not super interested in a specific step-by-step plan or a 12-step plan or whatever, but we are interested in plans that include steps, like
actionable steps.
That's the common denominator. You may have completely different steps than us, but we all have to take them.
Yeah, you have to take the first one and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And we really hope you will.
Yeah.
We hope you'll have a great end of the year and new beginning of the year. We're going to take a couple weeks off, and then we're going to see you right here. We're cheering for you. We believe in you.
Yes.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Get ready.
Brace yourself.
Run.
This is going out to all you lovebirds dancing at your high school prom.
Hi, everybody. Okay.
Hey, don't imitate me.
Oh, it's so funny.
Limitability. Yeah, what's the word?
Yeah.
My limitations.
Limitless.
I like to combine words sometimes.
This is a mess.
It's not random.
It's fine. We're thrilled about our blup, blup.
Do you hear the heat?
What was I just saying? He's going to tell us all about it.
That's the best one yet! And you
Good.
like paused. I actually am gonna just sit.
You are sitting so quietly. I'm just kidding. Wow.
Just Anna talking
Yeah.
to herself. It's fun.
It's just a psychotic episode. So
What am I saying?
I don't know.
All right, I'm just gonna wing it. We learned how good I am at winging stuff.
Famous last word.
I'm just, my palms are sweating.
Well, there it was.
Hey, little boy.
It is. You want some candy? Wow. I don't even know what that was. Folks, you will not hear Katie laughing this hard almost ever. This is a good one.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
I'm not. But if you make like a big noise, like if you, I don't know, accidentally hit your tooth
Fart
on the
or
microphone or fart, yeah, just stop so that it's easy to chop it out.
Yeah. You know? I don't know. It was,
Yeah, it's like serendipity.
yeah, this was very like
Serendipitous?
Thanks, Anna.
You can start over.
Okay.
It's almost like the universe threw a kitten at you way back then.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. By the way, I'm a therapist, so.
Oh.
That's why she can talk about cats
That's why I'm
so
throwing
eloquently.
kittens.
She knows a lot about serial killers too, but that's just
Yeah.
a
That's
coincidence.
just her personal life.
It
Right.
is. It definitely is. So backwards.
Did you just?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. It was like in my throat, like right here.
Oh, I heard it.
It was like,
We're leaving that in.
Listen.
Anyway,
So the things that make us human are clearly creativity and gas.
and burping.
Yes.
I love it.